Being 7 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Mayor Bosbus.
Here.
Commissioner Baker.
Here.
Commissioner Bauer.
Here.
Commissioner Collins.
Here.
Commissioner Gary. Commissioner Lynn.
Here.
Commissioner Twardy.
Here.
Commissioner Lynn.
I'd so move that we don't, that we do excuse Commissioner Gary.
Support.
Been with support. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you very much. I would ask those with cell phones, if they would please put them on vibrate or silence them, and by turning them off, we would appreciate it. Thank you. We have a request from the city manager to add an item which is time sensitive. The Tiger grant we talked about last meeting, and there has been a change to the Tiger grant. So, city manager, if you would like to inform us of that, we can make a vote.
Thank you, Mayor. The request in front of the City Commission would be to add to the agenda consideration of an amended Tiger grant application. Previously, it was determined that there would be a 20% required match. Upon further research by the engineering department, it was determined that the city would not have to have a 20% match and could, in fact, proceed with a smaller match. The revised grant application has approximately a 10.1% match included within it, and there's also a revised scope of work to provide additional work within the scope of the grant that would be presented by the city engineer.
Okay, thank you. And we'll use that as item number 1 because the time sensitivity is that that has to go in tonight, I believe?
That is correct, Mayor.
Okay, so we'll do that before the special order of business, right after the consent agenda. We'll need a motion.
So moved.
Support.
And as we all know, that's a unanimous decision by the commission. Roll call, please.
Mayor Bosbus.
Yes.
Commissioner Baker.
Yes.
Commissioner Bauer.
Yes.
Commissioner Collins.
Yes.
Commissioner Lynn.
Yes.
Commissioner Twardy.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. Item number 1, public comment on scheduled agenda items. Any person may reserve time to speak on an agenda item not to exceed 3 minutes per person. Is there anyone in the audience like to make a comment on an agenda item? Yes. Linda?
I'd like to make a comment on the Senate Bill 329 and House Bill 4503. That's status 6A.
Okay. Item 6A of the status report by the city manager. Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
I talk fast, but I might take a few more than 3 minutes.
Okay, Merlin, you're on the agenda. Yep, you're okay. Okay, thank you. Then we'll move on to item number 2, which is the consent agenda. Deputy City Manager.
Under the consent agenda, A, minute approval. 1, approval of the minutes of the regular City Commission meeting of October 2nd, 2017. Recommended action is to approve the minutes of the regular City Commission meeting of October 2nd, 2017. Item 2, acceptance of the minutes of the following boards and commissions. A, Downtown Development Authority, May 31st, June 14th, July 12th, August 9th, and September 20th of 2017. Item B, Local Development Finance Authority, March 2nd of 2017. Recommended action is to accept the minutes of the various boards and commissions. Item B, appointments and resignations. 1, reappointment of Craig Krauth and Tom VM to the Sault Ste. Marie Local Finance Development Authority, LDFA. Recommended action is to confirm the mayor's reappointment of Tom VM and Craig Krauth to the LDFA for a term to expire on December 31st, 2021. Item 2, reappointment to the Local Officers Compensation Commission. Recommended action, reappoint Bill Crawford to the Local Officers Compensation Commission for a term to expire October 1, 2022. Item 3, resignation from the Tax Board of Review. Recommended action, accept the resignation of Marilyn Mackey from the Tax Board of Review for a term that expires January 1, 2018, and send a letter of thanks for her service to this board. Item C, communications. 1, from Community Action Human Resource Authority, MDOT Project Authorization 2017-0124/P4 Recommended action is to authorize the city manager and city clerk to execute MDOT project authorization 2017-0124/P4 fiscal year 2018, section 5311, operating job access and reverse commute program. Item D, city manager's report. 1, resolution to exempt city from the provisions of Public Act 152 of 2011. Recommended action is to adopt the presented resolution and exempt itself from the provisions of Public Act 152 of 2011 for the 2018 calendar and medical plan year. Item 2, approval of vehicle transfer to Sioux Area High School. Recommended action is to approve the transfer of a 2008 Ford Crown Victoria instead of the 2015 Ford Explorer to the Sioux Area High School Public Safety Program scheduled to begin in September of 2018. Item 3, authorization for city administration to apply for the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation 2018 Culture of Health Prize. Recommended action, authorize city administration to apply for the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation 2018 Culture of Health Prize.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there a commissioner that would like an item further explained on the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, Commissioner Twardy.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Commissioner Bauer?
Yes.
Commissioner Collins?
Yes.
Commissioner Lynn?
Yes.
Commissioner Twardy?
Yes.
Mayor Bospas?
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. As our first item of business, before special orders of business, we'll go to the Tiger Grant submission. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. On this matter, City Engineer Basista will be presenting to the commission and community.
Okay. Evening. Evening, Linda.
Okay. At the last meeting, you approved us to apply for a Tiger grant, and as mentioned earlier by City Manager, at that point, it was believed that we were considered urban and that we would have to provide a 20% match for that grant. But we've since clarified that, and we are what's considered an urban cluster, and for purposes of the Tiger grant, we are therefore considered rural, and rural communities do not need to provide a do not have a required match for the Tiger grant. However, again, it's still a highly competitive grant, and any match is considered when they're making their decision on the applications. Also, upon finding out that we did not have to apply for or have to provide the match, I did look at the scope of the project again, because I was trying to keep it down to what I thought we might be able to pull off in terms of a match previously, and expanded the scope to include more of Easter Day and to include the full wall replacement. Before, I was selecting different components of the replacement to also reduce the cost, but in this case, I want to go for the full highest priced replacement in order to apply for the grant, to make sure we're covered for the full length of the wall, in case we decide to do the most highest cost option that was presented in the Smith Group JJR structural analysis report last year. So with that, the revised budget, total project budget, is proposed to be $21,700,000, with the city's match of $2.2 million and a Tiger grant of $19.5 million. And still $1 million of the matching, of the $2.2 million matching funds is coming from the special legislative grant through the state of Michigan, and 1.2 then from city funds, of which at this point I expect to apply for a Michigan Economic Development Trust Fund trust grant for making roads all-season roads. That's $375,000. The rest would be the carbide dock and water and sewer depreciation funds.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Commissioner Tuarte.
Thank you. So when you were talking about the 2.2, the 1 million is what Representative Lee Chatfield brought to the House Committee, right? And got approved for that. Do you have any other sources to potentially help us with the 1.2?
Yeah, as I mentioned, the 375 from the Michigan Transportation Economic Development Funds for making roads all season roads. That we have a really good chance for, but the application process doesn't start until the spring for fiscal year 2020. And we could use some of our other federal urban aid possibly towards it if we don't have the local. Although they don't like you to use other federal sources of federal funds. And as mentioned at the previous meeting, we still will take the time to go back to the shipping industry to see if they will commit any funds, knowing that the dock will be there for make arrangements for future docking or something like that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Commissioner Bauer.
A couple of questions. Number one, because we've really been talking and discussing about, upgrades to the carbide dock and how they've been needed for, I couldn't even tell you how many years now. So I guess my question is, these Tiger grants have been available since 2009. Why haven't we applied for one until now?
I got here in 2011, and the City Commission made the looking for funds, grant funds, on their goals for the last 2 years. But the main thing is that when we did the CZM, the waterfront redevelopment study with the CZM grant, having that additional engineering study behind us puts us in a better position to apply for the grant, because they don't like you apply. You're not very competitive if you apply for a grant without any technical work having already taken place. So by doing the study we did last year, we do now have the technical support for the problem. And prior to this study, we didn't realize we had that structural problem with the dock. We knew we had the sinkholes, but that always was a suspicion that it was just the ground under the dock giving away, washing away. And that's been confirmed in this study. So the sinkholes really had nothing to do with the structural condition of the dock itself. We always thought that those pilings were in fairly good condition, but once we had the low water for so many years, that caused the pilings that support the dock to start rotting away. So we have much fewer support, less support on the dock. That was determined with this structural analysis report. So prior to that, we had suspicions of problems, but we didn't have any real substantial information.
My other question was, why would we think that we were urban and not rural when we first submitted the application? Because I've never heard this place referred to as an urban area.
We are in the 2010 census, we are considered an urban area. We do have what's an urban cluster, where we have a small area with a denser population than the surrounding area. And for purposes of federal aid for our road system, we're in what's called the small urban area. So there's 3 types of areas that how MDOT breaks out how federal funds are dispersed to road agencies. One is urban areas, that's the Detroit, the Grand Rapids, those areas. Then there's what's called small urban areas. Those are the small towns that meet a certain criteria, but they're not the urban areas. So the small urban, and then there's the rural. And we're a small urban area. We're not in the rural task force anymore when it comes to federal aid for roads. we're in the small urban area when it comes to roads. So when I first looked up under the Tiger Grant, when it said urban, or you're either urban or rural, and I looked up under the urban, it didn't show us as rural, and actually really didn't show us as urban either. So at that point, I made the assumption, but we did some digging further in because we didn't have a lot of time to prepare prior to this. The deadline is at 8 o'clock tonight to submit the application, and which is why I asked for this to be on the agenda early. And thanks to Angie Patterson in my office, she was doing the digging and found it to be an urban cluster. And I asked the question to the grant administration and at DOT, and they confirmed that.
Thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions? We need a motion. Commissioner Twarney?
I so move the city manager's recommendation.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. Are there any further questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bauer,
Yes.
Commissioner Collins,
Yes.
Commissioner Lynn,
Yes.
Commissioner Twardy,
Yes.
Mayor Bosmas.
Yes.
Commissioner Baker.
Yes.
Motion carried. Good luck, and
Thank you.
You'll be back for a later item once that is taken care of.
Yeah, go make a phone call.
Okay?
Next item is special orders of business. A, public hearing on downtown facade project CDBG grant project accomplishments.
Thank you. City Manager Turner.
Thank you, Mayor. On this matter, DDA Director Knepper will present to the commission and community.
Okay. Evening, Justin.
Good evening. I think back in August, we held this public hearing already, and I I misread part of the grant closeout information, and it was required that I printed in the newspaper a public hearing and received an affidavit. In the last public hearing we held, I assumed that it was okay to have it on our standard public hearing document. So this is kind of a housekeeping measure. If you recall, we went through a slideshow of all the various buildings that were improved, but we have to hold the public hearing again in order to close out the grant. So hopefully we don't need any other information besides I did receive the affidavit from the newspaper that it has ran for the appropriate length of time this time around.
Okay. Any questions? City Manager?
The only comment, again, as mentioned when this was initially presented, was that on behalf of the city administration and many others, certainly appreciate the work that DDA put into this extensive administration of the program, and of course the investments of the property owners in this project as well, with significant benefit to the downtown.
Great. Okay. Thank you. So at this time, we'll hold the duly scheduled public hearing to allow for public comment regarding the downtown facade project, as Justin explained. Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to make a comment on that program at all? Okay, hearing none, City Commission. Let's go to Commissioner Lynn.
So move the city manager's recommendation.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to place it on file. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Collins,
Yes.
Commissioner Lynn,
Yes.
Commissioner Twardy,
Yes.
Mayor Bosmas.
Yes.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Bauer.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Item B under special orders of business is public hearing on single lot special assessment roll SL-2N-17 and SL-2W-17. A is public comments and action is on the single lot special assessment rolls.
Okay, thank you. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. As commissioners are aware, twice annually, in time for the summer tax bill as well as the winter tax bill, city administration develops a list of unpaid bills related to specific properties for consideration as a single lot special assessment. This includes both bills generated by community development as well as any outstanding utility bills where services have typically been terminated and the bill remains unpaid. An updated list of such outstanding payments is presented to the City Commission as part of this agenda item. And as a matter of housekeeping, there was one payment received during the day of the last meeting, which was from Mr. Flailer on Lion Street, and that has been redacted from this list, and certainly appreciate his patience with that. Now, the two recommendations in front of the City Commission would be first, that the mayor conduct a public hearing on single lot special assessment roll SL-2N-17 and single lot special assessment roll SL-2W-17, and following the public hearing and considering any comments, that the City Commission confirm the special assessment rolls. Thank you, Mayor and Commission.
Okay, thank you. And at this time, we'll hold the public hearing on the single lot special assessment roll as described by the city manager. Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to comment on that roll? Okay, hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Commissioner Baker.
I move that we recommend that the city commission confirm single lot special assessment roll for SL 2N17 and SL 2W-17.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Lynn?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuorty?
Yes.
Mayor Bospas?
Yes.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Commissioner Bauer?
Yes.
Commissioner Collins?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Item C under special orders of business is introduction and first reading of an ordinance to rezone Lot 6, Block 1, Maurice Reedy addition from R1 to I1 and scheduling of a second reading for the November 6, 2017 regular City Commission meeting.
Okay, thank you. City manager.
Thank you, Mayor. On this matter, Community Development Director Freeman will present to the Commission.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners.
Kelly.
So the request on this one is the rezoning of our subject property, which is 743 Peck Street, from R1 to I1. The property, you can see here on the outline, is just kind of south of Peck Street, just a little ways east of Portage Avenue. Here's kind of a closer look at it. This is Vital Signs, and then back here is where Feeding America used to be until they closed within, I think, the last 6-8 months or so. So the property in question is a single platted lot. It's 41 feet wide and 117 and a half feet deep. Right now there's a storage building on it, which is about 35 by 100 feet. That building was constructed between 1962 and 1964 and had an addition placed on it right around the mid-70s. Currently, Bob Matson is the owner, and he uses it for storage of personal items. Presently, the zoning of the property is R1, which is single-family, and historical maps indicate that it's always had a single-family zoning designation. Unfortunately, we don't have zoning board records that go back beyond 1975, so I have no idea how the building actually got there to begin with. Absent zoning allowing it, the Zoning Board of Appeals would have been the only path for it. So I'm not quite sure exactly how it got there. The building at 751 Peck, which is Vital Signs right next door, has kind of a similar history, except that property and the Feeding America warehouse were rezoned from R1 to I1 back in 1965. And for reasons unknown, the 1965 rezoning was actually omitted from a previous map revision, so it was actually, I had contacted Mr. Wilton and said, hey, your property's zoned R1. He's in the office fairly regularly, and it wasn't until the rezoning application that came in that I really looked back and found, okay, his property and the Feeding America were actually zoned I1, so this was really the only one that needed to be addressed. So right now, the use of the property is fairly limited. Single-family home, you could put a library on it, a municipal use, elementary or preschool. That building is not really conducive to any of those things, so you'd be looking at either spending a lot of money to convert it or taking it down and constructing something new. Technically speaking, the property isn't even big enough for a single-family home. The minimum lot size now is 50. It's still buildable, but it's kind of tight. The future land use map, not a surprise, indicating single-family, low-density residential with the property. Because of the previous map omission, the Feeding America building and Vital Signs have the same designation. For an expansion like this of industrial into a residential area, you really have to, step back and look and see, what are the unintended consequences of this type of action. Generally, with industrial uses, your impacts scale with the size of the property. And in this case, the property is kind of small, so I didn't think it was going to be a really great impact potential. Things you can do with the property, warehousing, trucking, wholesaling, some small manufacturing, a machine shop, building contractor, storage yard, material sales, that kind of thing. As I mentioned before, the property is small, only just over 1/10 of an acre. And even combined with the Vital Signs property next door, that's still only a third of an acre. Most anything in our industrial parks is going to be 2.5 plus acres, so relatively speaking, it's a really, really tiny piece of property. And of course, any new buildings going there would have to comply with the zoning ordinance. The current R1 district by design is obviously very restrictive, and that makes it very difficult to do something economically viable with the property in its current state with the building on if it's there. And there's kind of two outcomes. First of all, that a future owner neglects it, realizing there's very little economic benefit to doing anything with it, so it falls into disrepair. And the second option is a future buyer could just simply choose to disregard the zoning and do as they please with it. Neither of those outcomes are very favorable in the long term. In my mind, the proposed I-1 district provides some purpose with the property. Owner receives an economic benefit, and the neighborhood presumably it would have be maintained, looked after, so on, since somebody would be able to do something with it. And really, it would bring the property out of the shadows as far as the zoning and structure is concerned. As far as public comment, there was one letter objecting to it. That's included with your packet. And the recommendation from the Planning Commission was to approve, and that was a 7-0 vote. And the recommendation before the City Commission tonight is 1, to receive any public comment, and 2, to schedule a second reading for November 6th.
Okay, any questions of Kelly? City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for that presentation. This type of rezoning to industrial is, I would say, very rare, but the conditions and of the parcel in question, I believe, would mitigate any future impacts to a large degree, to a very large degree.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll hold the public hearing or public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment on this proposed ordinance? Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to the City Commission. Commissioner Lynn.
Your Honor, I'd so move we schedule a second reading for the proposed ordinance for the November 6, 2017 regular meeting of the City Commission.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Are there any questions? Thank you, Kelly. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Twardy?
Yes.
Mayor Bosphus?
Yes.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Commissioner Bauer?
Yes.
Commissioner Collins?
Yes.
Commissioner Lynn?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Item D under Special Orders of Business is introduction and first reading of an ordinance to rezone the west 28 feet of Lot 17 and all of Lot 18, Block 4, Fort Brady Addition from RM-1 to B3, and scheduling of a second reading for the November 6, 2017 regular City Commission meeting.
Okay, thank you. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Community Development Director Freeman.
Okay, this property is the old Sioux Automotive building at 301 Maple Street. You can see it in the aerial there at the northeast corner of Maple and Bingham. So there's 3 parcels that together are about 77 feet wide and 145 feet deep. Presently, there is a 2-story building on the property. It's been used historically for auto repair. That portion was constructed in 1900 with a single-story garage portion constructed right around 1915. Right now, the zoning of the property is low-density, multiple family, a designation that it's had in some flavor or another since zoning was established in the city in 1927. And unlike some other cases I've seen where the zoning has been changed after use is established, this property has always been, near as I can ascertain, used for some automotive use. So the automotive uses here predated zoning in the city as we know it. And at the time, they established multifamily, and the automotive use has just never changed. It's always morphed from one kind of automotive use to another, more or less uninterrupted. Here is an excerpt of the zoning map showing the property relative to its surroundings. The yard across the street is Customs and Border Patrol, that's B2, and Magic Mirror and Sioux Corner Store on the other side of the alley, that's B3, which is the same designation that's being requested. Commissioner Abby Baker is under purchase contract with the owner for a non-automotive use, and that transition away from that type of use, the first in the building's history more or less, makes it an appropriate time to consider the rezoning of the property. Future land use map shows the central business district designation, which is consistent with the types of uses that are allowed in B3. as well as the type of building which this is, being commercial on the first floor and residential up above. There's 2 apartments on top. The requested zoning will allow greater flexibility for the property since RM1 does not allow commercial uses in the building. No staff concerns, and this zoning change aligns the zoning with the historical uses of the property. Given the fact that it's been multifamily for as long as it has and has not transitioned to that use, it's unlikely that it's going to in the short or long-term future. And of course, this provides clear direction and aligns the zoning of the property with how it's been used and how it proposed to be used. No public comment. Most people I talked to were surprised that it wasn't commercial already. Planning Commission recommended 7-0 at their last meeting, and the action before the Commission tonight is receive public comment and schedule the second reading for November 6th.
Okay, thank you. City Manager, anything additional?
Nothing further. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I think when Commissioner Lynn and I were growing up, that was the Studebaker Garage, owned by the Partridge family. And I think at this point, the Commissioner, let's go to Commissioner Baker first. You'd like to ask the city attorney.
Yeah, I have to abstain, obviously, from this, I'm assuming. This vote, abstain.
It would be required that both you and Commissioner Lynn not participate in the discussion or vote on the action.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, we will hold the public comment on the proposed ordinance. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment on this at all? Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to Commissioner Collins.
Make a recommendation to hold the first reading of the proposed ordinance while scheduling the second reading at the November 6, 2017 regular meeting of the City Commission.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. Are there any further questions or comments?
We'll need a, we're gonna need a 4-0 vote on this, aren't we?
Probably so. With 6 of us here. Roll call, please.
Mayor Boswis.
Yes.
Commissioner Bauer.
Yes.
Commissioner Collins.
Yes.
Commissioner Twardy.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, Kelly.
The last item under special orders of business, item E, is introduction and first reading of an ordinance to rezone approximately 8.29 acres located on the north side of 3 Mile Road, approximately a third mile east of Ashman Street from RSV to RM-1, and scheduling a second reading for the November 6, 2017 regular City Commission meeting.
Okay, thank you. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, Director Freeman.
All right, you can see the property shaded in blue and the aerial up above. It's right across from Best Lawn Care between Family Services Agency on the west and Tapalinga Farms on the east. Right now, the property is a little over 8 acres of undivided land, which is attached to a larger parcel owned by Sioux Area Public Schools. The Chippewa County Family Project, I know Tracy's been before the board before, or the commission before, to talk about the intentions here, but it's to provide housing, stable housing for minors without a stable home situation. Property's been owned by the school district since 1968 and is presently zoned residential reserve, which is a single-family district. Historically, it's had a single-family designation of one form or another. The proposed RM1 district would allow up to 152 bedroom units on the property. However, the plans at this point are only for 3. You can see the zoning map, an excerpt showing the subject property location outlined. The future land use map shows this property as parks, recreation, and open space, but it doesn't actually define what that means, what uses are envisioned to fall under that umbrella. In speaking with Mrs. Holt on this particular property, there are quite a bit of wetland impacts here. So the actual buildable area is quite small, so most of the property, even after development, will be maintained in some open space fashion. So I'm not terribly concerned that we're departing from what would largely be looked at here. So the master plan also has a passage that encourages phased development of vacant and underutilized properties in areas that can support various levels of development with minimum changes to topography and natural features of the area. And this kind of seems to fit very nicely with that goal of the master plan. No concerns from a staff side. Development areas, fairly isolated pockets of single family, but largely commercial in this particular area. There were 3 comments received from the public, 2 in favor of the request and 1 gentleman who was more or less indifferent to it. The Planning Commission recommended approval on a 7-0 vote. And the action before the City Commission tonight is to receive public comment and schedule second reading for November 6th.
Okay, thank you. City Manager.
Nothing further to add. Thank you, Mayor and Commission.
Okay, thank you. This time we would ask the audience if anyone would like to comment on the proposed ordinance. And with us tonight, Tracy Holt, the Executive Director of Hospice, and someone in the community that does an awful lot of building. And I asked her if she would mind coming up and just explain the program, the project, because it's just another worthy project that you've taken under your wing.
Well, I just appreciate you giving us some consideration, and I did come in the past and present on this project, but just as an update, the Chippewa County Family Project is a nonprofit organization, and we are looking to build 2 homes for teenagers ages 14 to 18 who have been in foster care but shuffled from home to home and don't have a stable environment, and we just want to really give them a place to call home. So we're looking at building a townhouse style apartments, so one would house 6 females and the other would house 6 males. And we've been working really closely with Kelly, an engineer, and local contractors to find out what the best possibilities would be for that future, and working with the DEQ. And so we're really excited if all of this goes well and passes through next month at the City Commission meeting. We are looking to get the engineer drawings completed by February and working aggressively with grant funding to break ground this spring.
Excellent. Thank you very much for the update. Questions? Commissioner Bauer.
Will these dwellings also be, I assume they'll also be housing an adult, right?
Yes, there will be house parents in each one.
Right.
And they will be kind of employed, and we'll actually be hiring an executive director to oversee the foundation who will be in charge of grant writing and paying all the bills and managing everything, just like any other property.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? Thank you for the update.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else in the audience? We'll close the public comment. City Commission, Commissioner Twardy.
I move that we schedule a second reading of the proposed ordinance for the November 6, 2017 regular meeting of the City Commission.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Commissioner Bauer?
Yes.
Commissioner Collins?
Yes.
Commissioner Lynn?
Yes.
Commissioner Twardy?
Yes.
Mayor Bosmas?
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you.
Item 4, communications. A is from Marilyn Mackey. Discussion on promoting the city of Sault Ste. Marie.
Okay. Evening, Marilyn.
Mayor, thank you. Commissioners, thank you. This is not about money. This is about something that I have on my heart concerning, I travel a lot. At 79, I got time to look at signs and look things over. I wrote a letter, and I'm going to read from the letter, if I may, so I don't get it mixed up. Anyhow, we thrive on tourism in the Sioux, and our Visitors and Convention Bureau push us in front of places where they've hardly ever heard of us. Most of these are bus tours with drivers who know the way and how to read maps and GPSs. There's a sign as you exit the Mackinac Bridge saying north, and an arrow, black arrow, that's it. Nothing more. Then there's a sign saying St. Ignace, rightfully so, and an arrow leading into the town, and another sign saying Manistee, Escanaba, US 2, leading off to that exit. We are at the Sioux just north, and an arrow, a black arrow, which bugs me. A short distance further, another exit off the ramp, exit 344B, and again, a big sign announcing Manistee, Escanaba, US 2. Where and why doesn't it say Sault Ste. Marie? What is north? Are we just a black arrow, period? Is it just that we're not significant enough to the DOT to let drivers know Sault Ste. Marie is just ahead on I-75? If we can put millions of dollars into a roundabout for the Sioux, which I'm against, and we will be paying for water and sewer lines and other items to be moved, and not yet seen to us, shouldn't we have something putting our name out there as they come north across the bridge? Winter Haven, Florida has been my other home for at least 60 years, and I am constantly shouting Sault Ste. Marie to all in the South. The truth is, actually, many Michiganders don't have any idea where Sault Ste. Marie is. You may find that hard to believe, but it's true. And many people still think that they're coming into Canada as they cross the Mackinac Bridge and enter the UP. Travelers driving to a certain destination, I find, look at the cities ahead. If you drive around our nation, you probably know what I'm saying. Sometimes road signs are confusing, and the city is where I know I'm going. If I'm going to Cincinnati, I don't care about the sign. I just follow the sign of the city. And many people do that. The bridge toll booths have a small sign when you get to the Mackinac Bridge announcing Upper Peninsula of Michigan across the toll booths. But most travelers are awed by the awesomeness of the bridge and the sparkling waters as they cross and are getting out their toll money to figure which lane to go to, and they're not really reading the sign that announces they're in the UP of Michigan. Then as you exit the bridge, you see, like I reported, St. Ignace, then they exit Manistee, Escanaba, and north, not even I-75, but a black arrow. Then as you travel north on 75, past that arrow, around mile marker 345, it does say Sault Ste. Marie 50 miles. Then again another, now you don't know that you're on 75 because it doesn't tell you that. And then another rather more significant sign, not until mile marker 353, that you finally see a sign that says Sault Ste. Marie 43 miles. Are we looking to promote our Sioux, one of our nation's first settlements? That idea often excites people. Also, are we just hoping that they'll find our history, our locks, our railroad bridge is phenomenal, and it's an engineer feat from days gone by in the 1800s, as you know, in our neat little town. We don't want them to move here. We just want them to come and visit, bring their tourist bucks. Anyhow, I travel, and I've driven most of our country for all these years, and I know people look for more than just north and a black arrow for a direction. The name of a town often helps if you're not familiar with the area and you've been studying maps along the way. Everyone doesn't do the GPS thing or even know that they want to come to the Sioux, yet they end up here pleasantly surprised. 2 weeks ago, I just had a couple from Florida in church that said they just got in the car and they wanted to get out of the heat, so they followed the interstate. Older folks like to be on the highway, and remember this for all of you. We are at the very beginning, definitely not the end. Linda laughs, she knows. This is a gripe with me. We are at the very beginning of I-75. We are the home port. Georgia and Florida were late getting their share of I-75 done. People like to travel the interstate. We don't push our authenticity or uniqueness or our easy accessibility enough. Old people have the money. They spend, they travel. They come, they spend when they're here. A billboard just off the bridge advertising our city's history, age, locks, or something like that. Even I can see Canada from here for a few thoughts. We have so much to glean from. Let's use it. My request to you all is push, push, push. I have talked to Chatfield's office. I have talked to Wayne Schmidt. They have gotten in touch with the DOT. I have no pull with DOT, but you all do. And if somebody comes to you, because I've talked to the DOT today, or to Chatfield's office when we were talked about maybe some kind of a sign saying you are entering the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And beside that stupid black arrow, and just saying north, Sault Ste. Marie, we have to push, push, push that we are this city. People are enthralled with the idea of the old history. People are enthralled with the idea of getting on the highway and traveling to the beginning of it, even to be able to look out the window and see Canada. I'm 79. I can tell you now, at all of these years, it's fun. It's fun to be able to come and to get to a place like this. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate if you'll push for this. I wouldn't tell Oliver particularly what I wanted to talk about. I left him a little confused, but he knows I'm a fighter about things. Yeah. And I'm going to fight about this. I just need you all to say, This is what we want. We need this exposure as you come across the bridge. That little thing saying Upper Peninsula of Michigan on the toll booth, you're busy looking at stuff. You don't have time to read Upper Peninsula of Michigan. We need more exposure there. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn, and certainly great comments, and I think being the oldest city in Michigan, we should have a little bit more of an influence at the Mackinac Bridge.
We're the oldest in the country.
Well, no.
Well, number 3, eh?
Well, that's kind of a myth.
Or, well, it doesn't matter.
But we are the oldest settlement
We
in the
are.
Midwest. You know?
We are.
Yeah. But those are great comments. We also, on behalf of the commission and certainly the city of Sault Ste. Marie and the residents, like to thank you for really bird dogging and putting the money forward for the wall at the VFW that was painted on behalf of your husband Floyd.
That's right.
And we certainly appreciate that. It's a beautiful wall, and the insignias on there.
Thank you.
Just tremendous. And
Thank you.
Thank you for that. But these are great comments that you make, and I would think the commission would certainly send a proclamation in support of a billboard or a sign, and we have the Linda Holtz here going to speak later.
Linda and I
a
have
little bit.
talked about this, too.
And they have the wherewithal. I mean, we are where Michigan was born, and they use that in their pure Michigan
It's exactly
hands.
right.
So it's certainly
Listen, my
appropriate.
neighbor from New Jersey couldn't even speak English hardly. He used to holler across the street from me in Florida and holler, Sault Ste. Marie. They all know where I'm at. We need to push us.
Thank you. So,
Thank you.
Commissioner Bauer.
If anybody's been to Copper Harbor, you've probably seen that in Copper Harbor, they have a sign saying Miami, Florida, 1,440 miles. So, I mean, if you can get a sign for Miami, Florida in Copper Harbor, certainly we can get a sign for Sault Ste. Marie as you're entering the Upper Peninsula.
Yeah. We would need, how about a motion to send a resolution of support for that idea
So moved.
to the legislature?
Support.
And maybe the Department of Transportation, and then hopefully provide some of the money to make that happen when we get to the discussion.
Sure.
Okay, been moved and supported?
Yep.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Thank you, and thank you again, Marilyn. Okay, we are on to item number 5, which is the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Item A under the city manager's report would provide for the award of a contract for sewer televising. On October 10th, the city received bids for televising sewers in various locations throughout the city. This project is part of SAW grant activity, and the bids included cost for standard televising, documentation, and deadlines for both 2017 work and 2018 work, with the completion date occurring in 2018. 3 bids were received, with the apparent low bidder being National Power Roading Corporation out of Chicago, Illinois. The televising of sewers to determine the condition would be for those installed previously to 1974, which are eligible to be paid through grant funds. National Power Roading as a low bidder is being recommended for the award. However, their hourly rate for heavy cleaning is much higher than the other bidders. If it were necessary for much heavy cleaning to be done, then the company would ultimately not be the low bidder. Because of this, if there is a need for heavy cleaning, the Water and Sewer Department would perform this cleaning on the sewers, with the company continuing to assess the sewers. Accordingly, it's my recommendation that the City Commission award the bid for sewer televising B-41-17 in an amount of $120,011 to National Power Roading Corporation as the lowest responsive bidder. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lynn.
Your Honor, I so move that we approve the city manager's recommendation.
Support.
So moved, supported. Are there any questions? Commissioner Bauer.
Can we ask them to put this on charter cable in case anyone has insomnia so they can, go and have a cure?
You don't want to see what's in our sewers.
You don't have to take a pill, you can just watch sewer television.
Anyone else? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bauer,
Yes.
Commissioner Collins,
Yes.
Commissioner Lynn,
Yes.
Commissioner Tuorty,
Yes.
Mayor Bosmas.
Yes.
Commissioner Baker.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Item B, under City Manager's report, would provide authorization for the city manager to execute documents necessary to record a mortgage in the amount of $16,255 on 509 Cary Street and discharge a mortgage in the amount of $25,000 on the same property according to the presented terms. In late December 2000, Linda Rogers, owner of 509 Cary Street, signed a mortgage in the amount of $25,000 for improvements to a residence as part of the Community Development Block Grant Home Program. The $25,000 was in the form of a loan which did not require the payment of interest, but required payment within 30 days of the time the borrower was no longer using the improved property as their primary residence. The project was beset by disagreements between Ms. Rogers and her contractor, as well as the city's Housing Commission, which administered the grant. Attempts were made to bring the project to a successful completion. However, those efforts were ultimately unsuccessful. Of the original $25,000 set aside for the project, only $16,255 was spent. Mrs. Rogers was given an opportunity to reduce the amount of the mortgage, and a memorandum written by former City Manager Niebel is included with this item and gives a more complete background on the subject matter. In August 2016, Mrs. Rogers passed away. Through the probate process, 509 Cary Street has been deeded to Ms. Rogers' daughter, Ashley. The existence of the mortgage was not discovered during the probate process. In late August of this year, Ashley began the process of working with Central Savings Bank to obtain a home equity loan on the house to conduct much-needed repairs, such as the sewer, which has been marginally functional for a long period of time, and to pay off expenses, which were left to Ashley to bear. Under the terms of the original agreement signed by Ms. Rogers, the city would be well within its rights to seek the repayment of the $16,255. And as a note, the city has collected payments from such circumstances in the past and maintains a balance of just over $62,000 in revenues associated with past program administration. However, given the circumstances, Ashley has requested that the city consider alternative outcomes. And over the course of a number of conversations, city administration proposed that a new mortgage in the amount of $16,255 be recorded against the property, which would be discharged with no amount owing should Ashley maintain 509 Cary as her primary place of residence for at least 5 years. With a new mortgage being recorded, the original $25,000 mortgage would be discharged. Concurrently, there are several important considerations which factored into the recommendation in front of the City Commission. First, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation has issued no objections to the proposed resolution. Secondly, the structure of the original mortgage recorded on the property did not terminate after a set amount of time. In contrast, a number of the mortgages recorded against property through this program terminated after a set period of time. The proposed resolution would trend more toward the time-limited arrangements administered for a number of properties previously. Third, and perhaps most critically, the aim of the program was to promote property improvement and neighborhood enhancements. It is the understanding of city administration that this arrangement will promote further investment in the property and strengthen the neighborhood through continued investment and occupancy of the house. Accordingly, it's my recommendation that the City Commission authorize city administration to modify the existing mortgage as presented, to record a new mortgage with the terms as presented, and authorize the city manager to execute related transaction documents. Thank you, Mayor and Commission.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lynn.
I have a question for City Attorney. This is through Central Savings Bank. I'm on this board. Am I allowed to vote on this?
I would say, given the underlying structure of why we're doing what we're doing, that you should abstain.
Good enough.
Okay. Commissioner Collins.
A question for the city manager. So the original structure, as far as the mortgage terminating, didn't have a date set. And so basically the idea behind it is that once she's actually there for 5 years, that the mortgage would then terminate, correct?
That is correct, Commissioner.
And according to the statements that we just heard and that you have in here, that was basically the structure that was out there for other citizens as well, is meaning that if they had that type of mortgage and they were in the house for a certain period of time, that terminated?
That was the case for a number of properties. I believe the majority of the properties which were improved through the program. Not all of the properties were like that. However, this has been, I think, a unique situation in which so much time has elapsed that this house is prepared for improvement once again.
But we're not setting a precedent. This is something that's been done before.
To my understanding, this is a unique situation the Commission has addressed as far as changing the mortgage itself. However, the structure to change it to a limited period of time would put that closer towards those time-limited arrangements which existed previously.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Commissioner Tuardi?
Yeah, just a comment. I think it's great. I don't know Ashley, but I think it's great that Ashley wants to take this house and fix it up. I've been on Cary Street. I know this property well, and I think it's only going to enhance the community. And if we can help her out as the city government, I am so in favor of this. So I say kudos to her and good luck. That being said, I move that City Commission authorize City Administration to modify the existing mortgage as presented, record a new mortgage with the terms as presented, and authorize the city manager to execute related transaction documents.
Support.
It's been supported. Any further comments or questions? I do commend the city administration for coming up with this kind of a solution. It does happen in the county program. With the three-county area of Chippewa, Luce, Mackinac County, there's a different program than the city's program. I mean, it's a similar type mission of funding, and because of particular circumstances, once in a while you have to look at what's the benefit to the community and to keeping the housing stock marketable and in good repair. Sometimes those things do happen. Just a comment. So, anyone else? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Collins?
Yes.
Commissioner Lynn?
Abstain.
Commissioner Tuardi?
Yes.
Mayor Bosmas?
Yes.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Commissioner Bauer?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you very much. Best wishes.
Item C, under City Manager's report, would provide authorization for a service provider agreement with Sioux Events. At its December 5th, 2016 regular meeting, the City Commission voted unanimously with one abstention to approve a service provider agreement between the City of Sault Ste. Marie and Sioux Events. This agreement was structured to include a term of 6 months, from January 1st through June 30 of 2017, with the City of Sault Ste. Marie paying $5,000 to Sioux Events for services rendered. During the term of this agreement, Sioux Events completed substantial work on behalf of the City of Sault Ste. Marie to plan for activities associated with the 350th anniversary of the French settlement of Sault Ste. Marie, to plan for the Great Race, to provide marketing assistance and support for events sponsored by the city, to coordinate the annual citywide cleanup, to engage in activities supportive of the U.S. Coast Guard Integration Committee, and to support a variety of related administrative functions. While city administration has actively supported these efforts, the outstanding efforts of Mary Jo Duvall through the service provider agreement have elevated these various activities in terms of impact and provided many hours of service that were essential to the successful implementation of these tasks. This is particularly salient considering current staffing capacity. Importantly, the City Commission included funding within both fiscal years of the adopted 2-year budget to support the possible extension of the service provider agreement. In discussion with Sioux Events, it is clear that much work can continue to be accomplished through this arrangement. It should be noted that the proposed service provider agreement would provide for a payment in an amount of $9,000 to Sioux Events for this work as detailed, with a term lasting from July 1st, 2017 through June 30, 2018. The agreement has previously been favorably reviewed by the City Attorney and the City's liability insurance carrier, and it's my recommendation that the City Commission authorize the City Manager to execute the service provider agreement as presented.
Okay, thank you. And I know Mary Jo is here in the audience. Would like to maybe give us an update on. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. We've been pretty busy getting everything ready for the 350. We are getting a lot closer now, so it's gotten a lot more exciting. It hasn't been all about the talk of what we're going to do and what we want to do. We're actually seeing some action now, and things are progressing quite well. Just to start off with, right now we're actually in the middle of getting a calendar approved, or the final designs done on it, that we will sell and have with all of our historical pictures from the area. So that's one of the things that's just about ready to be done. On New Year's Eve, we're going to do a kickoff to the 350th anniversary, and it'll start off from 12 to 3 down at the Farmers Market with a family event. We want families to come out and do some snowshoeing races, snowball fight games, and different things like that. We'll have food and beverages out there. We'll have an opportunity for the kids to do some family events and crafts and things like that to get ready for New Year's Eve. We will follow that evening down at the Ramada, where we will have our opening dinner and recognition for the semi-septennial year. That'll be followed with a ball drop and fireworks at midnight. The ball will be dropped from the corner of Island Books and Crafts. Okay, so we're excited about that. We're actually going to do a trial run through for the kids at 3 o'clock, just as that party ends. So we'll do a little trial and we'll get excited with the kids and all that kind of stuff. So we're looking forward to that event. That's going quite well. We're pretty excited about it. February 1st, our latest and newest event that I've got going since we've talked last is we're going to attempt to break the Guinness World Record for the most snowmobiles in a parade. And that will happen February 1st, the week of the I-500. It'll happen on a Thursday, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Some people ask why Thursday and why 2 o'clock. We have to have filmed evidence for the Guinness people, so we have to do that during the daylight, number one. And with the schedule of the I-500, obviously we can't do it on Saturday. The racers are busy on Friday, and we know that a lot of them want to participate. What we need is 1,048 sleds to break the record. So we have started a registration on the Sault Ste. Marie website, and we've got several snowmobiles already registered. The buzz is out there, and people are excited about that. So we're looking forward to that. We're going to bring people early into the community that week, starting on Thursday, Wednesday night, possibly if they come up early. So we're looking forward to that. It should be a fun event. We will continue January through May with events that are going on in the school system. Lake Superior State history class right now is currently working on a historical exhibit for us. It will be displayed starting at the dinner on New Year's Eve. From there, it'll go back up to Lake State. It will go into our school systems. It will go down to the library. Anybody else that would want to request it to be displayed at their business location or something, there's always a possibility for that. And as well, during the summer months with the high tourism, we will have it down on Portage Street also in a building for everybody to see. So there's a lot of elements going on in the school systems as well currently. March will have a exciting event happening with the first ship, the opening of the locks. In June, we will have Engineers Day, as well as we will have a luncheon for local and statewide politicians up. That'll be the day before Engineers Day. Then we'll continue on that weekend with Engineers Weekend and all the festivities that go along with that, Coast Guard Day and everything. In July, we will have a themed 4th of July parade with historical floats and everything like that. So we encourage everybody to start planning now for your float or your walking group. Then we go into mid-July where we will have a 350th festival. It'll be a week-long event leading up to Rendezvous in the Sioux. We will have food, music, vendors, entertainment, and all sorts of different things for families to come down and enjoy our city with, as well as historical and cultural events that will be going on. August and September, we'll be busy with a lot of our annual events that we do already here in the community. November, we have the Parker's Parade of Lights planned for day after Thanksgiving as usual, and we're going to up that up just a little bit by taking everyone down to the Pollard. If they'd like to do a free open skate from like 8 to 10 o'clock, we're going to do that with some hot chocolate and different things like that for the family to enjoy. And then in December, we will close out the year with our celebration on December 16th. Once again, we're going to go down to the Polar with a little bit of a show for everybody, and that also will be followed with some the Polar history. They're working on getting some of that stuff out, so we're excited. Lots of things happening.
It's going to be a very busy time, and I certainly like to commend on behalf of the commission the committee that's been involved about 18 months.
Lots of planning.
Designing and planning, and we're still going to do the ice sculptures, and that'll be a Convention and Visitors Bureau type.
Yeah, we are going to do
Okay.
the ice sculpture shirts still. That's the Sioux events,
Okay.
and the Visitors Bureau also assists us
Sure.
with that and sponsor it.
Yeah,
We actually, for that event, we have got a picture from 1968 celebration that is an ice stage, and we're making plans right now to actually make that again, do a duplicate of it and have some ceremonies down there.
I'm sure the commission has a number of questions. The only one I have would be the parade. Is that going to be at the I-500 track?
We are going to be working on that route.
Okay.
I started to make a committee as far as people from the groomers and all that, city, just a bunch of different people in the community to get together and discover what our best route will be for the event.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Tuardi.
Thank you. Yeah, a couple of questions. Thank you for letting me know when the actual 350th anniversary is going to be. I've had a lot of people already asking me because it does take some time for some people to plan their vacations.
Right.
When is the marketing stuff going to be coming out for those exact dates?
That's all started now with
Okay.
the CVB office doing some marketing with all of that, and we will have that. A lot of that information will be on our calendar, actually.
Okay.
And that will be out the 1st of November.
Okay, first, so we are coming up on that.
Mhm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then I just had a quick question. I don't know, I've been here for 4 years, and I know Sioux Events has been here together for now 10 years. We're coming up on 10 years, right, for Sioux Events? I think so.
I'm not
I don't-
positive on that, actually. I
know.
don't think it's on that
Linda's
long.
got her hand, it's
6
7 years.
7?
7? Okay,
Yeah, I
we're
was gonna say, I
7.
don't
Okay.
think it's 10.
I kind of like the idea, though, of, just for the sake of transparency and for the taxpayers, I kind of like the idea of the taxpayers knowing exactly where their money is going and with these events, because I know that we've had this long-standing service provider agreement with Sioux Events, and I love that we're able to help out, the taxpayers can help out. But I think it's really great for the taxpayers to be able to say, oh yeah, that's where my taxes are going. I like the fact that I'm helping to help with all these projects, so.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Baker?
It was more or less what you asked about the route for the I-500 parade.
We're working on it.
I'm pushing for downtown, so whatever you need
Yeah,
for.
it'd be nice to be able to bring it downtown, like Abby had mentioned earlier when we had talked. For those people who have not been in our community before, it's a time for them to be able to possibly ride some of our trails and see what's out there. So maybe the next time they come up here, or they might plan another vacation to come back so they can ride the trails and see where it takes them. So
And from
we're putting all of that into, and from the business standpoint, absolutely.
And marketing standpoint too, like
Yep.
pictures down on Ashman Street with thousands of.
Yep, so we're working together with everybody from the city and the snowmobile groups and all that to get the best route, best exposure for everybody, and the safest route for the parade.
Okay, Commissioner Bauer?
Yeah, Sioux Events, they've just done a great job 3 ways. Number 1 is growing events. Number 2, coming up with new events. And number 3 is picking up the ball on some of these events, such as the Festival of Races, which used to be a chamber event, and now Sioux Events is taking over the responsibility for that, and that seems to be growing year after year. I don't think we have a motion yet, so I would like to make it that the commission authorize the city manager to execute the service provider agreement as presented.
Support.
Moved and supported. Are there any further comments? Thank you very much for your efforts and your
Welcome.
committee's efforts.
And I do just want to add
and,
one last thing, the ball drop.
Yes.
We will continue to do that on an annual basis.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
So
excellent.
I look forward to that also.
Wouldn't that be- And certainly like to thank Les Townsend from the Books and Crafts for the use of the corner.
The corner of the building,
That
yeah.
beautiful building that's been restored. It's great.
Very good, thank you, everybody, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary Jo.
Okay, so we have a motion and support. Are there any other comments? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Lynn?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuardi?
Yes.
Mayor Bosmas?
Yes.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Commissioner Bauer?
Yes.
Commissioner Collins?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Item D, under City Manager's Report, would provide for the appointment of a liaison to the Malcolm Field Working Group. At its December 5th, 2016 regular meeting, the City Commission voted unanimously. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize for that. Wrong memo. As commissioners are aware, the City Commission took action during its 2017 goal-setting process to establish a goal for the city to expand resources dedicated for improving Malcolm Field. Subsequently, during the budget development process, the City Commission approved the allocation of approximately $13,500 for capital improvements at the ball fields. At the time, the City Commission also approved approximately $3,500 to $4,000 for each fiscal year of the 2 budget years for the hiring of part-time staff tasked with maintaining and improving the ball fields. Recently, a working group comprised of the various stakeholders which utilize the ball fields has started to meet on a regular basis to discuss future improvements to the fields, program funding, collaboration between groups, fundraising, site layout, needed purchases, and community engagement. City Commissioner Abby Baker has organized and attended both meetings of this working group. As City Manager, I have also been able to attend both meetings of the group. The group is an excellent venue to foster cooperation and ensure the refinement of a common vision for the fields between its various user groups as well as the city. The vision, energy, and enthusiasm of the user groups is strong, and the involved stakeholders have requested that the City Commission designate a liaison to attend the meetings. The working group has also requested that the city appoint a staff member to regularly attend the meetings of the user groups. However, this can be achieved administratively. It is currently anticipated that this employee can ensure the operations of Parks and Recreation effectively align with the user groups of the fields in a manner that benefits the entire community and prioritizes resources. Accordingly, it would be my recommendation that the City Commission appoint a liaison to the Malcolm Field Working Group. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and certainly Commissioner Baker has been involved in the inception of that, and I believe wants to be that liaison person, so Commissioner Lynn?
I would so move that Commissioner Abby is the liaison.
Support.
Been moved, supported. Abby, Commissioner Baker, would you like to say just a couple words?
I'm really excited about this with getting the group of individuals have worked so hard on Malcolm Field and keeping it maintained the way it has been for so long. By uniting them and getting a good base and getting a master plan to present to the city hopefully in the future, it's a much needed repair for the ball fields to get it in a conducive tournament manner so we can actually generate some revenue hopefully off the fields and make it more inviting, cleaner working bathrooms, things like that. So it's exciting group to work with, and I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, great. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you.
And one item before the conclusion of the city manager's report, did want to backtrack a touch and highlight those entities which worked with the city to submit a letter of support or submit necessary information in support of the Tiger Grant application. Just to list off these entities: the Lake Carriers Association, the Army Corps of Engineers, Senator Stabenow, U.S. Senator Stabenow, U.S. Senator Peters, Representative Chatfield, Senator Schmidt, the Sault Ste. Marie Tribe of Chippewa Indians, the Road Commission, the Economic Development Corporation, EUP Regional Planning and Development Corporation, the Michigan Municipal League, the Michigan Department of Transportation with the assistance of the Governor's Office, and the International Bridge Administration. Certainly wanted to recognize all of these parties for submitting really important and necessary and useful information as well as letters of support during this grant application process.
It's an impressive list, and hopefully that goes a long way in getting the approval. That's a large, maybe the largest, one of the largest projects for grant money that I can remember in a long time. $19 million, and it would go a long way in improving Easterday Avenue and the dock area. So thank you, City Engineer Linda Basista and your staff for doing that. Good luck.
And then one other update has been requested, and that is on the matter of the assessment of the installation of a possible installation of a stop sign at the intersection of 3 Mile Road and Riverside Drive. At this point in time, it has been determined that the northern leg from the intersection is under the jurisdiction of the city of Sault Ste. Marie, and the legs that extend west and south from the intersection are under the jurisdiction of the Chippewa County Road Commission. A meeting has been set to occur within the next week and a half involving city staff and staff from the Chippewa County Road Commission to review the subject matter further.
Okay, great.
That concludes the city manager's report. Thank you, Mayor and Commission.
Okay, thank you. Item number 6, status reports. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Item A under status reports pertains to Senate Bill 329 and House Bill 4503. As city commissioners are aware, Senate Bill 329 and House Bill 4503 regarding short-term rentals have recently been introduced in the Michigan legislature. Relative to this subject matter, information from the Michigan Municipal League as well as the draft bills have been included for review by the City Commission and community. Of note, the legislation was reportedly introduced in an effort to prevent local units within the state of Michigan from banning short-term rental services like Airbnb. In a number of municipalities throughout the state, such services have threatened to erode the character of neighborhoods and led to conflicts disruptive to residential communities. As drafted, the legislation would first erode local control under the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act over matters that can seriously affect the character of neighborhoods. Secondly, undermine community and citizen-driven public processes which inform the development of zoning provisions that best reflect the characteristics of communities. Third, allow dwelling units purchased for the sole purpose of renting as short-term rentals to be considered as a permitted residential use rather than a commercial use, undermining the public input process and the tourism industry and the outstanding work performed by entities such as the Sault Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. And fourth, forbid local units of government to use proper legal means to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of individuals at such rental units. Conversations have been held with Senator Schmidt and Representative Chatfield, and both have indicated that they oppose the legislation as it's currently written. As evidence of the broad impact this legislation has across the state of Michigan, a coalition consisting of the Michigan Lodging and Tourism Association, the Michigan Municipal League, the Michigan Historic Preservation Network, the Michigan Bed and Breakfast Association, UP Travel, the Michigan Townships Association, the Michigan Association of Convention and Visitors Bureaus, and the Michigan Association of Planning all unanimously oppose this legislation. It's my understanding that Sioux Area Convention and Visitors Bureau Director Hoth will be planning to address the commission on this, but certainly when it comes to local control and the public input on the characteristics and identities of neighborhoods, certainly this legislation will undermine those important avenues for citizens.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll have Convention and Visitors Bureau Director Linda Hoth want to make a couple of comments.
Good evening, and thank you. Just a couple of comments, and I won't take the 3 minutes. I'm not like Marilyn. But I am Marilyn, so yeah. As Vice President of the Michigan Association of Convention and Visitors Bureaus, we have been watching this it's been going on now for quite some time. I'm saying 8, 10 months. We've been watching this really, really close. And it's all of a sudden went into legislature. The rules that a lodging establishment has to have and all the things that we have to follow within a city or even outside the city, what they have to go through, these local people wouldn't have to go through any of that. We find it would erode your community. It really would. It would take away from so many different things that we have here. And I've been with our legislators. I've also just recently have sat down with our lobbyist in Lansing, looking at it and making sure that we can move forward and we can get people behind us. And so this is one of the things we wanted to do, I talked to Oliver and he said, well, let's do it together. And I think that's a wonderful thing when we all stand together against something that could erode our communities. I can't imagine having somebody renting out a house next to me and having a big party, 6, 8, when it's somebody it's okay. But when you have somebody different every week or every weekend or every couple of days, and not have to follow the rules that you have to be followed within a community. So I would like to have the support of this commission in opposing this, at this time, opposing it. They could come up with better rules, they could come up with things that would make sense, but we don't know that's, right now I don't even think it's going to go to the floor, I'm hoping. Of course, we didn't think it would go to the legislature and we'd get it out like this either, so things change so quickly. But the support behind us would help us immensely in Lansing. Thank you. Any questions?
Commissioner Twardy?
Yeah, thank you. That's actually what I was going to ask. So it's just sitting in House and Senate committees right now. It hasn't Okay.
It's being pushed pretty hard, though. We can
Is
tell
it?
you that,
Okay.
yes.
What are Chatfield and Schmidt's feelings on it as far as?
Chatfield is a no.
Yeah, I know that he's a no. Can he speculate on how his fellow House members are feeling?
I don't know if he can speculate. He hasn't really given us that answer yet.
Okay.
He's looking into it and different things like that, but I do know that if they start changing things around, we could see them push it out onto the floor.
Okay.
We could see if they start
We
making
could
amendments.
send a letter of opposition to our, in support of the, against the.
Supporting Chatfield and Schmidt,
Supporting
yeah.
Chatfield and Schmidt against the legislation.
Opposing the legislation.
Opposing the
Yes.
legislation.
Yeah.
Commissioner Lynn.
Linda, who's the the pushers on this? Who's the big
Yeah.
people supporting this?
Realtors.
Let's get that letter out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm not saying our realtors, but realtors, and they are buying up houses in cities all over the place, and then they're renting them out.
It destroys residential areas,
Yes.
no question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Commissioner Collins?
I would say that with this, just so that everybody kind of has an understanding where I'm at, I actually have property that I use home away and rent out. But I'm absolutely for making sure that local governments have the jurisdiction to make sure that, you know, you're not throwing parties, or that your neighbors have a voice that they can go to. One of the biggest things I think that bothered me about this legislation proposal that I saw was where local people that actually rent out their properties could get out of the government rules that we have right now just by changing the terms of their lease. If I read it correctly, they could change their year lease to a short-term rental agreement, and by doing that, they would basically be outside the jurisdiction of city ordinance.
Right.
So with that, I definitely have support, or would support the fact that we send a letter. In opposition, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Thank you. So we have a motion from Commissioner Lynn and support from Commissioner Collins to send the letter in opposition to the legislation. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you.
Item B, under status reports, is an update on the demolition of the structures at 606 Eureka Street and 629 Magazine Street. Just a quick update, the structures, I believe that is 606 Eureka in the picture there. Both have been demolished within recent weeks through the collaborative efforts of City Commission, City Administration, the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, and the second picture being pulled up is of 629 Magazine. Again, these are structures which went through a significant public process and due process, and have been demolished for the improvement of the neighborhoods, with the funding coming from the local remediation revolving fund, which the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority maintains. As promised by City Administration, this update being provided will conclude at least the process for the demolition of the houses outside of site cleanup, a bit of site cleanup. But certainly, again, appreciate the collaboration that brought this to fruition.
Great.
And certainly appreciate the input of the neighbors throughout the process as well.
Okay, excellent. The, could you add the update on the West Fourth? Because we're getting a lot of questions about West Fourth construction, because people see a course of blacktop, and I know it's being traveled by some residents, you know, because South Street tends to be really in rough shape with the amount of traffic that it's giving, even though we're plowing it daily. By 3 o'clock or in the afternoon, or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's back to being pretty rough. I've been on it a number of times. I know a lot of people travel that, and the sooner we can open up West 4th, and I guess we were on, at one time I understood we were on schedule for the 15th or so of October.
Thank you, Mayor. I've requested that City Engineer Basista inform the Commission and community on this matter.
Yes, that's correct, Mayor. As you've seen, the first layer of paving is placed down. The contract states that the contractor has to have all the other work finished before making the final, putting down the final wearing course. That includes the completing that retaining wall that is now done and all the restoration. There's still 2 driveways that need to get completed with concrete before final paving takes place. That's expected tomorrow or Wednesday, pending weather. So I anticipate paving being done, completed probably next week. The reason we don't want to open the road, and temporarily, one, the structures, the manhole covers have been raised in preparation of the final paving, so that's hazardous. They're up 2 inches, so it's not good to drive over those. And when we do go to close the road for that final paving, residents won't know, and that detour is, you really need to take 20th Street is the official detour, and I wouldn't want residents to all of a sudden get up there on whatever day the road finally gets closed and find out they have to turn around or take South Street, which is not preferable, as you just said, it's not the detour route. So that's why we're not opening it back up. I've seen plenty of cars going through, and then, of course, South Street, but I think it's best to leave it closed until the final paving does get done.
So there will be a final pavement this year
Yes.
on that, and we won't leave it, just a one course.
Yeah,
Like we would see it, so-
I'm fairly certain, we did do the, some televising of the sewers. The contractor also is required to televise the sewers prior to doing the final paving, to just check on the condition. There were some problems with the sewer, some cracks. I think that they can be lined without having to be dug back up, but if it's determined that those need to be replaced as opposed to lined, then we would have to replace those, in which case we would have the contractor lower the structures back down and put temporary pavement markings down, and then do the final paving next year.
Okay, so that's to be determined?
It has to be determined. I'm fairly certain that we'll be able to line those sewers and instead of dig them up and replace them.
Let's hope.
So,
Thank you. City Manager, any comments?
Nothing further to contribute. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
And thank you, City Engineer.
Does that conclude the?
That concludes the status report section of the agenda. Thank you, Mayor and Commission.
Okay, thank you. Item number 7, matters presented by the public. Is there anyone in the audience like to make a comment at this time? Justin?
Good evening again. Just two quick updates for upcoming events. Downtown Trick or Treat is happening October 27th on Fridays. That's in just 2 weeks. Our Halloween event. So we have a number of businesses that will be participating to offer candy and trick-or-treating up and down Ashland and Portage. We have hay rides offered by Chuck Palmer and Tom Gage. They're volunteering with their tractors and wagons. And a number of other things. Haunted house for Rotary Club, haunted house for the Sioux Theater. Should be a good night. And that's at 5 o'clock on Friday the 27th. And then right after that, I left some brochures on each of your tables. Our second annual Sault Ste. Marie Restaurant Week is taking place November 6th through the 12th. It's just a great time to come out and try the special cuisine that is offered at 8 different restaurants around the community. And you can go to SiouxRestaurantWeek.com to look up menus.
Okay. Thanks. Anyone else? Any questions? Thank you, Justin. Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item number 8, matters presented by the City Commission. Commissioner Tuardi.
Thank you. Well, just wanted to talk about the candidate meet and greet tomorrow night up at the Sisler Center. It is hosted by the League of Women's Voters. I am not part of that board, and I don't know if there's anybody in the audience who's part of that board, but it is a great opportunity. We are in election season, and it is a great opportunity to come out and see who you want to cast your votes for. So tomorrow night, 6 p.m. at the Sisler Center, right?
Yes.
I'm expecting that most of us will be there.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Baker.
A couple of events coming up I just wanted to let the public aware of. One is our fall economic luncheon for the chamber. It's next Wednesday, the 25th at 11:30 at the Sisler Center. Anybody like tickets, you can go to our chamber office and pick them up. Should be a good event. Also, a really good event coming up this weekend. The Families Against Narcotics, the fan group, is putting on a pig roast and festival. All proceeds go to the fan of the Chippewa County. Children 6 and under are free. It's this Saturday from 1 to 7 at the National Guard. Tickets can be purchased at the door, or if you know Robert McRory at Malcolm High School, Lynn Farnquist, or Joe Claxton, get out and support this group because they're doing amazing things in our community that's desperately needed. So it's a good cause.
Excellent, thank you. Let me, and I've had a couple of calls, and I know we've talked about this before, but I'm going to bring it up again, and that's West 14th Avenue, the speed limit on above Foss Hill. It goes from 25 miles an hour to 40 miles an hour in that 2-mile area roughly to the back, I believe, off of Meyer and then into 3 Mile Road. But when you look at the shoulder, which is very narrow, folks can't, at one time they used to be able to ride their bike, they used to be able to walk their dogs. I know our deputy city manager lives on that, and I know John Saruk is called. They were going to make it an agenda item. He was talking about making it an agenda item tonight. I said I would bring it up again, and I know we've had studies, and they say if people are driving 40 miles an hour, then that's probably what the speed limit should be. Well, I think it's, personally, I think it's unsafe. When you look at the 40 mile an hour on Seymour from the high school to 3 Mile, much wider, much more open, larger sides of the shoulders of the road. I would just think that the 35 mile an hour speed limit would be plenty for that area. And I don't know how the rest of the commission feels. I think we've talked about it before. I think we had that study, but there are residents on that street that still feel very unsafe to be even on it if they're not driving. And I think that's again, it's a local street that gets a lot of traffic, but 35 miles an hour is adequate. I think 40, because people don't drive 40 many times, they're driving more than 40, and that's just, I mean, we know what happens, but I would like to see it come back to 35, where, just 35 the whole way, except for that 25 mile an hour space after Foss Hill until you get on that straightaway, because there are undulations in that road also, and it's just very hard to see traffic coming at that kind of a speed very quickly. I mean, Commissioner Collins?
When you're going up Foss Hill and you take a right,
yes,
and then you hit the stop sign,
yes,
and you go left, is it 45 right there, or is it like
it's only
25?
40 maximum, and the 40 is at the other end, but it's 25, I believe, then 35, and then 40.
Because it's residential in that area, right?
It's residential the whole way.
Right.
Some of them are a little larger lots, but the shoulders of the roads, and in our community, people like to get out and walk, and they like to ride their bikes, and that's a nice area back in there. And they just feel unsafe, and if you were on that street and people driving as fast as they're driving, it makes it unsafe for anybody that's a pedestrian or,
Well, in Seymour, when I was a kid, was 45 miles an hour coming in from 3 Mile, and you had narrower, basically side shoulders, right?
Yes.
And now they've actually made the shoulders bigger, better roads, and reduced the
Yes,
speed
it's
limit
40
to
miles an hour.
So what do we have to do in order to have that looked at to see if we can reduce the speed?
We can act as a commission, I think. We've had a number of studies on the, and city manager, you remember I think we had a speed study or whatever it was, and then most of the traffic was driving, 40 plus. I mean,
I'm not a big fan of people going faster than 35 miles an hour in a residential area.
Thank you, Mayor and Commission. During my tenure, I'm not aware of a speed study that has been completed on that street. However, this is certainly something that administration, if it's the Commission's pleasure, would take under review and return with a recommendation or with assessment or analysis to the City Commission for its consideration, as far as maybe not just perhaps any type of regulations which would come up during a speed study, but also the authority of the City Commission to set the speed limit on the street under its purview.
The sooner the better.
Okay.
By next meeting, hopefully?
Certainly.
Okay. Commissioner Bauer.
While we are on the subject of traffic-related issues, Ann Street between Ashman and Brown Street, which is an extremely short street, it's also a one-way street. And if you're going on Ann from Ashman, it is clear that it is a one-way street. But if you're going on it from Brown Street, it is not clear that it's a one-way street until you're actually on it going the wrong way. So what we should really look into for that is either, you know, a do not enter sign or another one-way street sign to put at the beginning of that street so that people don't enter that improperly and are going the wrong way. If we could look into that, I would appreciate that.
That's certainly something city administration can review and accomplish as a commission's pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Lynn?
Your Honor, since my time is really short now, one meeting left, there are some people I'd like to thank. And it goes back to 2007 when you appointed me to fill a vacancy, and I believe Ray Bauer was on the commission, Verna Lawrence, I don't know about Don Gary, Snuffy McGahey, Bill Munsell, and even maybe Marilyn Burton.
And Don, I believe, was here.
Okay, so,
No?
thank you.
Maybe he wasn't here.
And 2 elections since then. But I'd also like to thank all the department heads and the people that I've served with that worked for the city for 3 decades. And whether it's the Puller, Street, Police, Fire, City Hall, just a lot of great dedicated people, and I want to thank them. And especially I'd like to thank the city attorney, Steve Canello. When I was mayor and I did visit other cities, was that, what they call? Exchange, Mayor Exchange. I always said, as Steve went with us, and I appreciated that, I always said he's the best city attorney in the state of Michigan, and I believe that to this day.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I am not a write-in candidate. I want to make that perfectly clear. With that, Your Honor, move to adjourn.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.